The sky is wide and calm, but nothing feels calm beneath it. Far below, the ocean stretches in every direction, flat and endless, like it is holding its breath. High above the water, aircraft move through the air, small and alone against the size of the world. Inside the cockpit, a pilot scans the horizon again and again. There is nothing but blue sky and white clouds. The radio stays quiet. Fuel is slowly running out. On the decks of American aircraft carriers, crews stand and wait. Engines have already roared and faded. Some planes have not come back yet. Officers look at clocks more than they look at each other. Every minute matters. They know that somewhere beyond the horizon, another force is moving. They cannot see it. They can only guess. Far away, Japanese pilots fly in long formations over open water. They have been told this moment could decide everything. Their orders are clear, but the distance is great, and the ocean below gives no help. There are no landmarks. Just water. Just sky. Just the feeling that time is slipping away. This is not a battle of noise and fire. Not yet. This is a battle of waiting. Of searching. Of doubt. Inside command rooms, men study maps and signals. Some trust new tools that show shapes moving across screens. Others trust their own judgment. Both sides believe they are ready. Both sides believe the other will make a mistake first. But no one knows how this day will truly end. The Battle of the Philippine Sea has begun, even if no one fires a shot yet. The air feels heavy with pressure. Pilots think about fuel more than fear. Commanders think about timing more than glory. Every choice now will carry a cost later. A delayed order. A wrong turn. A missed signal. In this kind of battle, small errors do not stay small for long. An American pilot looks down at his fuel gauge and then back at the empty sky. He was trained for this moment. He trusts his carrier will be where it should be. But trust does not calm the mind when the ocean below looks the same in every direction. He thinks of home for just a second. Then he forces his eyes forward again. On the Japanese side, confidence mixes with worry. Some pilots know they do not have the same long training as those who flew before them. They know many experienced airmen are already gone. But they also believe in numbers. They believe that if enough planes reach the enemy, the result will be decided quickly. That belief keeps them flying forward. Weather adds its own problems. Clouds break formations apart. Sunlight blinds pilots at the worst moments. Messages arrive late or not at all. Plans that looked strong on paper begin to bend under real conditions. The ocean does not care about strategy. It only reflects the sky and swallows mistakes. On American carriers, deck crews prepare again and again. Planes are moved. Fuel lines are checked. Orders change. Some pilots are told to launch. Others are told to wait. No one complains. They all understand that the air battle will decide whether the fleet survives or burns. Silence becomes its own kind of noise. Radar operators track distant signals. Small dots appear, fade, then appear again. Are they friendly? Are they enemy? The answer must come fast. There is no time for long thought. Decisions are made with limited facts. Men trust machines they barely understand and instincts shaped by months of training. Japanese commanders believe they have found the enemy's weakness. They believe they can strike from far away, keeping their carriers safe. Distance they think will protect them. But distance also stretches control thin. Pilots must fly longer. Fuel becomes a silent enemy. Every extra mile reduces choices. In the air, pilots feel alone even when flying together. The sky is too big. The enemy is unseen. Fear comes not from what is happening but from what might happen next. Some men grip their controls tighter. Others breathe slowly and repeat training steps in their minds. Then the first real signs appear. Shapes on the horizon. A sudden radio call. A sharp change in course. The waiting ends and confusion rushes in to take its place. Orders overlap. Planes turn. Engines strain. The calm sky begins to feel crowded. This is the moment before everything breaks open. The moment when belief meets reality. When planning meets chance. When training is tested not in practice but in truth. No one in the air or at sea knows yet that this battle will be remembered as a turning point. Right now it feels like any other dangerous mission. Fly out. Find the enemy. come back alive. But beneath the calm surface, something larger is already moving. The future of air power at sea is about to change. The balance between two nations is about to shift. And many of the men flying today will never fully understand how important this moment was, even if they survive it. The sky remains wide. The ocean remains silent. And the battle of the Philippine Sea moves forward, one uncertain decision at a time. What was happening over the Philippine Sea was not just another clash between planes and ships. It was a moment where the future direction of the Pacific War quietly stood in balance. Both sides understood this, even if they did not fully understand how final the result would be. For Japan, this battle carried a heavy weight. By this point in the war, their choices were shrinking. Islands that once felt distant were now under threat. American forces were moving closer, step by step, across the Pacific. Each new island taken brought enemy airfields nearer to Japan's heart. The Philippine Sea stood like a wide door. If that door fell open, there would be little left to stop the advance. Japanese leaders believed this battle was their chance to change the direction of the war. They knew their resources were limited. Fuel was harder to get. New pilots did not have the same long training as those lost earlier. Ships could not be replaced easily. So this battle was planned as a decisive blow. One strong strike. One moment that would force America to slow down or even pull back. They believed their air arm could still do this. They believed numbers could make up for experience. They believed distance could protect their carriers while their planes reached out and struck first. On paper it seemed possible. In hope it felt necessary. For the United States, the stakes were just as high but different in nature. America was not fighting to survive the next month. It was fighting to finish the war. Every major battle was now about momentum. The question was no longer if the United States could win, but how quickly and at what cost. Control of the air over the sea had become everything. Aircraft carriers were no longer just support tools. They were the heart of the fleet. Lose air control and ships became helpless targets. Win it and the ocean became a moving base that could strike anywhere. The Philippine Sea was tied directly to future plans. American commanders were preparing for major landings. Those landings would only succeed if the skies were safe. If Japanese air power remained strong, every future move would carry great danger. This battle would decide whether American forces could move forward with confidence, or whether they would have to pause and rethink everything. There was also something deeper at stake. Trust. American forces trusted their training systems. They trusted that pilots trained longer would make better choices under pressure. They trusted new technology like radar to give early warning and clear direction. They trusted coordination between ships, planes, and commanders. This battle would test whether that trust was earned. Japanese forces trusted courage and commitment. They trusted that pilots would fly long distances without hesitation. They trusted that bold action could overcome material weakness. They trusted ideas that had worked earlier in the war, when surprise and skill had brought success. This battle would test whether those ideas still fit the reality of the war as it had become. Both sides also understood that this battle was about more than ships and planes. It was about morale. A major victory could lift spirits at home and silence doubts. A major defeat could shake confidence and force hard truths into the open. Japanese leaders feared that another failure would break something inside their navy that could not be repaired. Not ships, not planes, but belief. Once belief fades, even the strongest plans begin to fall apart. American leaders feared a different danger. Overconfidence. They knew success could lead to careless choices. This battle needed to be won not with pride, but with control. Mistakes here could cost thousands of lives and delay the war by months or years. Far from the command rooms, the men flying the planes felt these stakes in simpler ways. To them, the battle mattered because it decided whether they would see another sunrise. Whether the deck of their carrier would still be there when they came back. Whether their training would be enough when fear took over. They did not think in terms of grand strategy. But their actions would shape it. The Philippine Sea was also a test of time. The war had entered a phase where speed favored America. Factories were producing more planes than ever before. Training programs ran constantly. Supplies flowed across the ocean in endless lines. Japan, by contrast, was running out of time. Every loss hurt more than the last. That is why this battle mattered so much. It was not just about winning today. It was about whether Japan could still fight tomorrow. If Japan could destroy American carriers or weaken their air groups, it might buy precious time. Time to strengthen defenses. Time to seek a different path. Time to delay the inevitable. If America could break Japan's naval air power, the path forward would open wide. Future battles would become less uncertain. The sky would belong more and more to one side. None of this was fully clear to the pilots circling above the sea. But the pressure they felt came from these hidden truths. Every engine sound carried the weight of national plans. Every radio call carried hope and fear far beyond the cockpit. The Philippine Sea mattered because it would answer a silent question hanging over the Pacific War. Could Japan still strike with real force from the air? Or had the balance already shifted beyond return? The answer would not come from speeches or reports. It would come from choices made under stress. From pilots trusting instruments. From commanders trusting systems. From moments when there was no time to ask for permission. As planes closed in and the first true encounters began, the meaning of this battle started to take shape. Not as a single dramatic moment, but as a slow realization that some paths, once taken, cannot be reversed. Before the first plane rose into the sky, before radar screens filled with moving dots, the Battle of the Philippine Sea was already taking shape far from the ocean itself. It was forming in offices, shipyards, training fields, and quiet rooms where leaders studied maps late into the night. This battle was born from pressure, from loss, and from the slow understanding that the war had entered a new and dangerous phase. For Japan, the world before this battle felt smaller than it once had. Early in the war, success had come quickly. Long-trained pilots, bold planning, and surprise had brought victory after victory. But those days were gone. One by one, experienced airmen had been lost in earlier battles. Each loss left a gap that could not truly be filled. New pilots arrived faster, but they did not stay in training long enough. There was no time. The war demanded speed, not patience. Fuel became a constant worry. Every flight used precious resources. Every training hour competed with the need to prepare for real combat. Commanders knew this, but they also knew they could not stop. To pause was to fall behind. And falling behind meant surrendering control of the skies. Japan's leaders faced pressure from every direction. Politically, they could not admit weakness. Militarily, they could not afford another major defeat. The Navy, once proud and confident, now carried the weight of expectation. It was expected to do what seemed nearly impossible: stop an enemy that was growing stronger each month. The idea behind the coming battle was simple, at least on the surface. Draw the American fleet into a decisive fight. Use long-range aircraft to strike first. Protect Japanese carriers by keeping them far from danger. Destroy enough enemy air power to force a pause in the American advance. It was a plan built on hope and necessity. But beneath that hope lay fear. Quiet fear. Fear that training was no longer enough. Fear that new technology favored the enemy. Fear that old lessons from earlier victories might no longer apply. Still, no better option appeared. So the plan moved forward. On the American side, the world before the battle looked very different. The United States was building strength at a scale never seen before. Shipyards worked day and night. New carriers joined the fleet. Planes rolled off assembly lines in numbers that seemed endless. Training programs grew more organized, more structured, and more demanding. Pilots trained longer. They flew more hours. They practiced working as teams. Mistakes were studied, not ignored. The goal was not just bravery but reliability. American leaders understood that war at this stage was not about single moments of heroism. It was about systems that worked even when individuals failed. Confidence grew, but it was a careful confidence. Earlier battles had shown that even strong forces could suffer if they became careless. American commanders knew the Japanese Navy was still dangerous. Underestimating it would be a serious mistake. Respect for the enemy remained strong, even as optimism increased. Politically, pressure also existed on the American side. The public expected progress. Each new victory raised expectations for the next. Leaders needed to show that sacrifices were leading somewhere meaningful. The Pacific War was vast, slow, and distant from home. Momentum mattered not just on the battlefield but in belief. The island-hopping strategy pushed American forces closer to key targets. Each captured island served a purpose. Airfields extended reach. Bases shortened supply lines. But every step forward also increased risk. The closer forces moved toward Japan, the harder the resistance could become. That is why air power mattered so much. Whoever controlled the sky controlled the pace of the war. Without air cover, ships became exposed. Troops on land became vulnerable. Supply lines could be cut. The Philippine Sea sat directly in the path of future operations. It was not just another stretch of water. It was a gateway. As both sides prepared, tension built like a tightening rope. Japanese planners believed this was their last real chance to stop the advance. American planners believed this battle could remove one of the final major threats to their fleet. Both beliefs could not be true at the same time. One side would be proven wrong. Far from the planning rooms, the human side of preparation continued. Pilots cleaned gear, reviewed checklists, and wrote letters they hoped they would never need to be read. Some joked to hide nerves. Others stayed quiet. Everyone felt the weight of what was coming, even if no one spoke about it openly. On Japanese carriers, young pilots listened closely to instructions. Many knew they lacked the long experience of those who had trained before the war. They tried to absorb every detail, every warning, every tip. Pride pushed them forward, but doubt followed close behind. On American carriers, pilots drilled again and again. Launch procedures, landings, formation flying, emergency plans. Confidence came not from belief alone but from repetition. They trusted that when confusion arrived, training would guide their hands even if fear filled their minds. Technology also shaped this moment. Radar, still new and not fully understood, gave American forces a powerful advantage. It allowed them to see threats before they appeared to the human eye. But technology alone did not guarantee success. It had to be trusted, interpreted, acted upon in time. Japanese forces relied more on eyesight, timing, and long-held methods. These had once worked very well. But the world had changed faster than doctrine. The sky was no longer empty and open. It was filled with signals, screens, and systems. As the days moved closer to battle, neither side could fully see the shape of what was coming. Plans were finalized. Fleets moved into position. The ocean remained calm, hiding the tension building above it. There was a sense, especially among senior leaders, that something important was about to happen. Not just another clash but a test. A moment where the direction of the war would become clearer, for better or worse. No one could stop it now. Too much had been invested. Too many forces were already moving. The stage was set by choices made months earlier. The actors were in place, carrying the weight of nations on their shoulders. When the first planes finally lifted off, they carried with them all of this history. Every loss, every lesson, every hope. The Battle of the Philippine Sea did not begin in the air. It began long before, in a world shaped by pressure, confidence, fear, and time running out. As fleets moved closer and the distance between them slowly closed, the true battle began inside the minds of those in command. Long before planes met in the sky, ideas, beliefs, and assumptions were already colliding. This was a war of thinking as much as fighting. On the Japanese side, senior naval commanders carried the weight of the past. Many of them had lived through the early victories of the war. They remembered how careful planning and skilled pilots had brought success against powerful enemies. Those memories were not just history. They shaped how these men saw the present. They believed that bold action, taken at the right moment, could still change everything. Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa stood at the center of this belief. He was calm, disciplined, and deeply loyal to the Navy's traditions. He understood that Japan's situation was dangerous. He knew resources were limited. But he also believed that the Navy still had one strong move left. A single, well-planned strike that could shock the enemy and restore balance. Ozawa trusted the idea of distance. He believed that by launching aircraft from far away, his carriers could remain safe. He believed American forces would be forced to react, giving Japan the advantage. This belief did not come from foolishness. It came from experience. Earlier in the war, long-range strikes had worked. Surprise had worked. Speed had worked. But the war had changed, even if not everyone fully accepted it. Below Ozawa were pilots who felt a very different kind of pressure. Many were young. Their training had been shorter. They respected their commanders, but they also knew their own limits. Some had only a few combat flights behind them. They listened carefully to instructions, aware that mistakes now carried heavier consequences than ever before. Fear existed, but it was quiet. Japanese pilots were taught to hide doubt, even from themselves. Duty came first. Obedience came second. Personal survival came last. This mindset created courage, but it also limited flexibility. When plans began to break down, there was often little room to adapt. On the American side, command thinking followed a different path. Admiral Raymond Spruance was not a dramatic figure. He did not seek attention. He was thoughtful, careful, and known for his control under pressure. His strength was not bold risk, but steady judgment. Spruance understood that his greatest advantage was not a single ship or weapon. It was the system around him. He trusted radar. He trusted training. He trusted coordination between ships, aircraft, and command centers. Most of all, he trusted patience. This patience was not weakness. It was discipline. American pilots trained under a system that encouraged learning and adjustment. They were taught to follow orders but also to think. They practiced reacting to confusion, not just ideal situations. They were told that survival mattered because experienced pilots were valuable. This created a very different mental environment. Fear still existed. No amount of training removed it. But fear was managed, not hidden. Pilots talked about it. Instructors acknowledged it. This honesty helped prepare them for moments when the sky filled with uncertainty. Spruance also carried his own doubts. He knew that waiting too long could allow the enemy to strike first. He knew that moving too quickly could expose his carriers. Every decision balanced risk against restraint. Unlike Ozawa, he was not trying to force a dramatic outcome. He was trying to avoid disaster. This difference in mindset would shape everything that followed. Technology played a quiet role in this mental battle. Radar gave American commanders early warnings, but it also created new problems. Signals had to be interpreted. Decisions had to be made before the enemy could be seen. Trusting a screen instead of the human eye was still new. Some officers embraced it fully. Others hesitated. Japanese commanders, by contrast, relied more on visual contact and timing. Their system required pilots to find the enemy themselves. This placed great responsibility on individuals in the air. When conditions were clear, this could work. When clouds, distance, or confusion intervened, it became dangerous. Belief systems mattered here. American forces believed in shared awareness. Information flowed across ships and units. Japanese forces believed in focused strikes carried out with precision and courage. Both approaches had strengths. Both had weaknesses. As the battle drew closer, pressure increased on all sides. Decisions could no longer be delayed. Fleets were committed. Fuel was limited. Turning back was no longer an option. On Japanese carriers, commanders worried about timing. Launch too early and pilots might miss the enemy. Launch too late and the opportunity could be lost. Every calculation involved distance, speed, and fuel. There was little margin for error. On American carriers, commanders worried about defense. Protecting the fleet mattered more than chasing the enemy. Fighters were positioned to guard the skies. Pilots were told to stay alert. The focus was on control, not aggression. These mental differences created two very different emotional climates. Japanese leaders felt urgency mixed with resolve. This battle felt final. If it failed, there might not be another chance. That belief sharpened focus, but it also narrowed vision. Alternatives faded. Doubt was pushed aside. American leaders felt caution mixed with confidence. They believed time was on their side. This allowed for flexibility, but it also demanded discipline. Overconfidence could undo everything. For the pilots, these mental states filtered down in simple ways. Japanese pilots felt they were part of a decisive moment. American pilots felt they were part of a larger machine. Both felt responsibility but in different forms. As engines warmed and planes lined up on decks, the thinking was already set. Plans were locked in. Assumptions hardened. The battle would now test not just aircraft and weapons but the ideas behind them. When the first orders to launch were given, they carried with them months of belief, fear, pride, and preparation. Once airborne, there would be little time to rethink these choices. The Battle of the Philippine Sea was about to move from minds to motion, from planning to action, from belief to consequence. The first engines begin to roar before the sun fully settles into its place in the sky. On the decks of aircraft carriers, the air vibrates with sound and heat. Pilots sit ready, hands steady on controls, eyes forward. Deck crews move with speed and focus, guiding planes into position. There is no shouting. Everyone knows their role. This moment has been practiced again and again. When the first aircraft lifts off the deck, the battle truly ignites. Planes rise one after another, disappearing into the open sky. Below them, the carriers shrink into small shapes on the endless ocean. For the pilots, the world narrows to instruments, radio calls, and the space ahead. The sea offers no guidance. There are no roads in the sky. Only trust in direction and timing. On the American side, radar screens begin to fill with signals. Distant shapes appear, faint but clear enough to raise alarms. Officers lean closer. They call out bearings and distances. Orders move quickly through the chain of command. Fighters are launched to intercept. Defensive plans snap into place. But nothing moves as cleanly as it does in training. Some signals disappear. Others appear suddenly closer than expected. Radio messages overlap. Pilots hear fragments of instructions, not always complete. The fog of war settles in, thick and fast. In the air, American fighter pilots adjust their course. They climb, spread out, and scan the sky. Sunlight flashes off wings. Clouds drift slowly, hiding and revealing shapes without warning. Every shadow could be a threat. Every glint could be a friendly plane or an enemy closing in. At the same time, Japanese strike groups are already on their long journey. Their planes fly low over the water, engines steady, formations tight. The distance is great and fuel must be managed carefully. Pilots calculate in their heads, again and again. How far to the target? How far back? How much margin remains? Their orders are simple. Find the enemy carriers. Strike hard. Return if possible. As they move forward, small problems begin to grow. Clouds break formations apart. Some planes fall behind. Others drift slightly off course. Radio contact becomes uneven. Still, the groups press on. Turning back too early would mean failure. For Japanese commanders, this is the moment they have waited for. Reports come in slowly. Sightings are unclear. But there is confidence that the enemy is ahead. Launch after launch leaves the decks, filling the air with movement. The plan is in motion. Back on American carriers, the mood is tense but controlled. Fighters climb to protect the fleet. Pilots circle above, waiting. Time stretches. Minutes feel longer than they should. Fuel burns even while nothing seems to be happening. Then the first contacts come into view. American pilots spot distant shapes. Dark dots against the bright sky. The radio comes alive. Short calls. Quick confirmations. The enemy is here. What follows is confusion rather than clarity. Some American fighters move to intercept, but distance and altitude complicate everything. Enemy planes are spread out. Some fly higher. Some lower. The sky feels crowded and empty at the same time. Pilots struggle to keep track of both the enemy and their own positions. Japanese pilots, seeing American fighters for the first time, feel a sudden shift in pressure. Training takes over. They tighten formations or break away depending on orders and instinct. The sky becomes a place of sharp turns and rapid decisions. There is no single front line. No clear boundary. The battle spreads across miles of open air. Groups form, scatter, and reform. Pilots focus on survival, on staying aware, on following the mission. For American commanders, the challenge is coordination. Fighters must protect the fleet, but they also need to stop enemy strike planes before they reach the carriers. Choosing where to send them is difficult. Commit too many forward and the fleet is exposed. Hold too many back and the enemy gets through. Spruance watches reports come in. He listens. He waits. His choice is careful. Defense remains the priority. The fleet must be protected at all costs. This decision shapes the battle in quiet but powerful ways. American fighters meet Japanese strike groups far from the carriers. They disrupt formations. They force pilots to react under pressure. Some Japanese planes are pushed off course. Others drop altitude or climb suddenly, burning fuel faster than planned. For Japanese pilots, this creates a growing problem. Time is slipping away. Fuel gauges move toward empty. The enemy is harder to reach than expected. The sky is not clear and open. It is controlled. Still many press on. As the first Japanese planes break through the outer defense, tension spikes on American carriers. Alarms sound. Deck crews brace. Pilots and reserve planes wait for launch orders. Guns are manned. Everyone looks to the sky. But the attack does not arrive as expected. Enemy planes come in scattered groups, not in one powerful wave. Some arrive too high. Some too low. Some too late. Coordination breaks down under pressure and distance. American defenses, prepared and layered, respond quickly. Fighter pilots engage again and again. They do not chase too far. They return to guard positions. This discipline matters. It keeps the sky above the carriers controlled. For Japanese commanders, reports begin to paint a worrying picture. Losses are heavier than expected. Hits are fewer. Communication is poor. Pilots are not returning in the numbers hoped for. But the full scale of the problem is not yet clear. In the air, Japanese pilots face a harsh reality. Many cannot find the enemy carriers at all. The ocean below looks the same in every direction. Smoke and explosions are rare. There is no clear target. Fuel continues to run low. Some pilots turn back early hoping to survive. Others search longer, driven by duty and fear of failure. Each choice carries risk. Turning back too late means never returning. Searching too long means running out of options. On American carriers, another challenge emerges. American strike planes have been launched to find and attack the Japanese fleet. But locating the enemy proves difficult. The ocean hides ships well. Reports are incomplete. Planes fly long distances without clear sightings. Pilots glance at their fuel gauges. They know the danger of staying too long. They also know the danger of returning without results. Pressure builds inside the cockpit. As the day moves on, the battle becomes less about dramatic clashes and more about endurance. Who can stay airborne longer? Who can manage fuel better? Who can maintain order while chaos spreads? Late in the day, American pilots finally locate the Japanese fleet. Orders are given. Strike planes turn toward the target. The distance is extreme. Fuel is dangerously low. But the chance cannot be missed. Pilots press on, knowing that returning will be uncertain. The attack itself is fast and confusing. There is no time for careful planning. Planes dive, release and pull away. Anti-aircraft fire fills the sky, forcing quick reactions. Pilots focus on survival and execution, not on results. When the attack ends, a new problem begins. Night approaches. Fuel is nearly gone. The journey home stretches long and dark. American carriers prepare for a difficult recovery. Deck lights are turned on despite the risk. It is a choice made to save lives. One by one, planes attempt to land. Some succeed. Some miss. Some ditch into the sea near the fleet, their pilots rescued if possible. The cost of this decision is high, but the value of trained pilots is higher. As darkness settles, the noise fades. The sky empties. Exhausted crews work in silence. Pilots who return are drained, both physically and mentally. Those who do not return leave empty spaces on decks and in memories. Japanese forces face a harsher night. Many pilots cannot find their carriers. Fuel runs out. The ocean waits below, cold and unforgiving. By morning, the scale of the loss begins to emerge. The battle has not ended, but its shape is becoming clear. The ignition of the Battle of the Philippine Sea did not come in one loud moment. It came through hours of confusion, missed chances, and small decisions made under pressure. Control, not aggression, shaped the outcome. Discipline, not boldness, proved decisive. When the sun rises again, both sides will understand that something important has happened. Not just a clash of forces but a shift in balance. As the noise of the first clashes faded, the true weight of the battle began to settle in. What decided the Battle of the Philippine Sea was not one single strike or one bold moment. It was a series of choices, many of them quiet, made under pressure when information was unclear and time was short. One of the most important decisions came early, when American commanders chose defense over pursuit. It was tempting to send fighters far out to chase every enemy plane. It felt aggressive. It felt powerful. But it also carried great risk. Leaving the fleet unprotected even for a short time could have invited disaster. Admiral Spruance resisted that temptation. He ordered his fighters to stay close and protect the carriers first. This choice did not look dramatic. Some even questioned it at the time. But it created a shield in the sky that Japanese strike groups struggled to break through. It forced enemy pilots to fight before they reached their targets, burning fuel and breaking formations. This single decision changed the rhythm of the battle. Japanese commanders, meanwhile, faced a different problem. Their plan depended on long-range strikes working perfectly. Pilots needed to find the enemy, attack in strength, and return safely. Even small delays or mistakes could unravel everything. As reports came in, it became clear that coordination was slipping. Some strike groups arrived too early without support. Others arrived too late, after defenses were already alert. A few never found the enemy at all. Distance, once seen as protection, became a weakness. It stretched control and magnified every error. Another turning point came with the difference in pilot experience. American pilots, trained longer and flying more often, handled confusion better. When plans broke down, they adjusted. They trusted instruments. They trusted wingmen. They trusted that their carriers would be where they were supposed to be. Japanese pilots showed courage, but many lacked the depth of experience needed for such a complex battle. When formations scattered or radio contact failed, recovery was difficult. Searching for targets used precious fuel. Searching for home used even more. In the end, fuel became one of the most powerful forces in the battle. Timing also played a cruel role. Late in the day, American strike pilots finally found the Japanese fleet. The decision to attack was risky. Fuel was low. Darkness was approaching. But waiting until morning would mean losing the opportunity. Commanders chose to strike, knowing that getting pilots back safely would be difficult. This choice showed the difference in priorities. American leaders valued their pilots as much as their ships. When planes returned in darkness, carriers turned on lights, accepting risk to save lives. Many planes still did not make it back, but the effort mattered. It preserved experience that would shape future battles. For Japanese forces, the loss was deeper and harder to replace. Pilots who did not return could not be quickly replaced. Training programs were already strained. Each loss reduced not just numbers but skill. This was a turning point that could not be undone. Chance also played its part. Weather shifted at key moments. Clouds hid ships. Sun glare blinded pilots. Small changes in visibility altered outcomes. In war, chance does not choose sides, but it rewards those prepared to adapt. On this day, adaptation favored one side more than the other. By the end of these critical moments, the battle's direction was set. Japanese air power had been weakened beyond repair. American forces, though tired and shaken, retained their strength and structure. No one celebrated yet. Losses were real. Empty seats and missing aircraft told a quiet story of cost. But beneath the exhaustion, there was understanding. The balance in the Pacific had changed. The turning points of the Battle of the Philippine Sea were not loud or obvious. They were made in command rooms, on radar screens, and in cockpits where fuel gauges dropped and choices narrowed. They showed how discipline, preparation, and restraint can shape history more than bold words or dramatic plans. When the battle slowed and the sky finally began to empty, the human cost became clear in quiet ways. There were no loud announcements. No clear moment when everyone understood what had been lost. Instead, the truth appeared slowly, in silence, in absence, and in exhaustion. On American aircraft carriers, Pilots climbed out of their planes with heavy bodies and tired eyes. Some sat down where they stood. Others leaned against the sides of their aircraft, breathing deeply, trying to steady their hands. The noise of engines faded, replaced by the softer sounds of footsteps and quiet voices. The deck felt different now. Too many spaces were empty. Pilots looked around, searching for familiar faces. Some did not appear. No one asked questions right away. Everyone already knew what missing meant. It meant someone had not returned. It meant a seat would stay empty. It meant a family far away would one day receive difficult news. Many American pilots had flown for hours longer than planned. Fuel had run dangerously low. Landing in darkness tested every skill they had. Some pilots barely made it onto the deck. Others missed and went into the sea near the fleet. Rescue crews worked quickly, pulling men from the water when possible. Even survival came with shock and exhaustion. Fear did not disappear once the plane stopped moving. It lingered. It showed itself in shaking hands, in silence, in eyes that stared without focus. Some pilots replayed moments again and again in their minds. A sudden turn. A missed signal. A choice that might have saved a friend. But there was also relief. Relief at being alive. Relief at standing on solid steel instead of endless air. Relief at seeing the ship still floating beneath their feet. These feelings mixed together, heavy and confusing. For Japanese pilots, the human cost was even harsher. Many pilots could not find their carriers after the battle. The ocean below offered no clues. As fuel ran out, choices disappeared. Some pilots hoped to spot a ship at the last moment. Others accepted that they would not return. There was no rescue waiting. No lights turned on to guide them home. Those who did return landed on decks that felt quieter than before. Too many aircraft were missing. Too many voices were gone. The loss was not just physical. It struck at confidence. Pilots who survived felt guilt as much as relief. They asked themselves why they lived when others did not. Young Japanese pilots felt the weight of these losses deeply. Many had looked up to older, more experienced airmen who were now gone. These veterans had been teachers, leaders, and examples. Their absence left a gap that could not be filled quickly or easily. On Japanese carriers, commanders studied reports with growing concern. Numbers told one story. Faces told another. Each missing pilot represented years of training that Japan could no longer afford to lose. The Navy did not just lose planes. It lost knowledge. It lost experience. It lost confidence in ways that reports could not fully explain. Fear also took a different shape. For Japanese forces, it became fear of the future. Fear of facing the next battle with fewer skilled pilots. Fear of knowing that even courage and discipline might no longer be enough. Both sides felt exhaustion beyond the physical. Mental strain weighed heavily. Hours of tension, uncertainty, and rapid decisions drained even the strongest minds. Sleep, when it came, was uneasy. Dreams replayed the day in broken pieces. Letters written before the battle took on new meaning. Some would never be sent. Others would now be read with different eyes. The distance between the battlefield and home felt wider than ever. The human cost also reached those who never flew. Deck crews worked without pause, handling planes, fuel, and equipment under constant stress. Radar operators stared at screens for hours, knowing that a missed signal could mean death for others. Commanders carried the burden of knowing their decisions had real human consequences. No one spoke of victory in emotional terms. Even for the Americans, success came with restraint. The cost had been too real. The absence too visible. War did not feel glorious. It felt heavy. On the Japanese side, silence settled in after the battle. There were no speeches to lift spirits. The loss was too great to ignore. Surviving pilots sensed that something had changed forever. The air arm they had trusted was no longer whole. The Battle of the Philippine Sea showed that modern war was not just about machines and plans. It was about people pushed to their limits. People who faced fear not in dramatic moments, but in long hours of uncertainty. People who made choices knowing they might never return. The human cost could not be measured only in numbers. It lived in memories, in empty bunks, in quiet meals, and in the weight carried by those who survived. As the fleets moved on and the sea returned to its calm surface, The people involved carried the battle with them. Some would fight again. Some would not. All were changed. When the fighting stopped and the reports were finally gathered, the question was simple but heavy. What had this battle truly been? A victory? A defeat? Or just survival? For the American fleet, the answer came slowly. At first, there was uncertainty. Pilots had flown long distances. Attacks had been rushed. Losses had occurred during the dangerous night landings. From the decks, it was not clear how much damage had been done to the enemy. Many commanders waited for confirmation, not celebration. Then the picture became clearer. Japanese aircraft losses were far greater than expected. Many planes had been destroyed before reaching their targets. Many more never returned to their carriers. The Japanese fleet was still afloat, but its air power was deeply broken. The pilots who survived could not replace those who were gone. Training systems could not recover quickly enough. For the United States, this meant something important. The carriers were still strong. Most pilots were alive. The fleet could continue forward. This was not just a tactical success. It was a strategic one. But victory did not feel loud. American sailors and pilots did not cheer wildly. They did not feel untouched. Too many friends were missing. Too many planes were gone. The cost of pushing to the limits of endurance had been paid. Survival itself felt like an achievement. Some pilots asked themselves hard questions. Was the late strike worth the risk? Could more men have been saved? These questions did not have easy answers. War rarely offers them. Still, there was understanding. The enemy's ability to fight from the air at sea had been crippled. Future operations would be safer. The path forward was clearer. For Japanese forces, the meaning of the battle was far more painful. At first, some commanders believed the damage was manageable. Ships were still afloat. No carriers had been lost. But as days passed and reports were compared, the truth became impossible to ignore. The loss of experienced pilots was devastating. Aircraft without skilled pilots were useless. Carriers without air groups were vulnerable. This was not just a setback. It was the end of Japan's ability to challenge American fleets in large air battles at sea. Japanese sailors and pilots felt confusion, then shock, then quiet understanding. The belief that one decisive battle could restore balance was gone. The strategy that had once worked no longer fit the reality of the war. For many Japanese pilots who survived, this realization was heavy. They had flown bravely. They had followed orders. But bravery alone could not change the outcome. The enemy's system was stronger. The gap was now clear. Survival took on a different meaning for both sides. For American pilots, survival meant another chance to fly, to protect friends, to finish the war sooner. For Japanese pilots, survival often came with guilt and uncertainty. They wondered what would come next, knowing the future would be harder than the past. The Battle of the Philippine Sea did not end with a clear moment of triumph or collapse. It ended with exhaustion, reflection, and a growing understanding of what had changed. The ocean returned to silence. Wreckage disappeared beneath the surface. The sky cleared. But the balance of power in the Pacific had shifted in a way that could not be reversed. Victory in this case was not about celebration. It was about control. Control of the air. Control of movement. Control of the future. Defeat was not about a single loss. It was about the slow realization that the war could no longer be fought the same way. And survival was not just staying alive. It was carrying forward the weight of what had been learned. In the days that followed, the true impact of the Battle of the Philippine Sea began to spread far beyond the place where it was fought. Fleets moved on, orders changed, and plans were rewritten. What had seemed like just one battle now revealed itself as a turning point with long shadows. For the United States, the aftermath brought a quiet confidence. Commanders reviewed reports carefully. They studied what worked and what almost failed. The lesson was clear. Their system had held. Training, coordination, and discipline had protected the fleet under extreme pressure. Radar, fighter control, and layered defense had proven their value. This changed how future battles would be fought. American leaders now understood that Japanese naval air power was no longer the threat it once had been. This did not mean the enemy was weak or finished. But it did mean that large carrier battles would not look the same again. The fear of sudden, overwhelming air attacks began to fade. This gave American planners freedom. Future operations could move forward with greater speed. Amphibious landings became less risky. Supply routes became more secure. The Pacific, once filled with uncertainty, slowly became an American-controlled space. The path toward later battles was now open. Morale also shifted. Sailors and pilots felt pride, but it was a calm pride. They had seen how close danger could come. They understood that success came from preparation, not luck. This reinforced trust in leadership and in each other. For Japan, the aftermath was far more painful. The loss of pilots could not be hidden. Training programs were already strained, and now they faced an impossible task. New pilots could be trained in basic skills but not in experience. That could only come from time and survival. Japan no longer had enough of either. Carriers remained afloat, but they were hollow in a critical way. Without strong air groups, they could not challenge American fleets directly. Strategy shifted from offense to defense. Hope for decisive naval battles faded. This change affected morale deeply. Japanese commanders were forced to confront a harsh truth. The war had moved beyond the methods that once brought success. Courage and sacrifice were still valued, but they could not overcome shortages in fuel, training, and technology. The gap between the two sides was now too wide. Pilots who survived the battle sensed this change immediately. They knew future missions would be harder, not easier. They knew replacements would be less prepared. The sky that once felt like a place of opportunity now felt like a place of loss. Strategically, the Battle of the Philippine Sea reshaped the Pacific War. It marked the end of Japan's ability to control the air over the sea. From this point forward, American fleets would operate with growing confidence, while Japanese forces would struggle to respond. The battle also changed thinking about modern warfare. It showed that wars were no longer decided by single bold strikes alone. They were decided by systems, training, and the ability to recover from loss. Numbers mattered, but only when supported by skill and coordination. This lesson reached far beyond the Pacific. The aftermath was not marked by parades or speeches. It was marked by movement. Fleets advanced. Bases expanded. The war continued, but with a new balance in place. The ocean once again appeared calm. But beneath that calm lay a clear truth. The Battle of the Philippine Sea had quietly reshaped the future of the war. When we step back from the noise of engines and the pressure of command rooms, the Battle of the Philippine Sea looks different. It does not stand out because of dramatic scenes or famous last stands. It matters because of what it quietly revealed about modern war and about human limits. This battle showed that the age of intuition alone was over. Courage still mattered. Skill still mattered. But courage without preparation could no longer change the course of history. The sky above the Philippine Sea proved that training, coordination, and systems now shaped outcomes more than bold plans or past success. For Japan, the battle became a painful lesson about overconfidence and timing. Early victories had created beliefs that no longer matched reality. Leaders trusted ideas that had worked before, even as the world around them changed. When those ideas failed, there was little room left to adjust. The loss was not just military. It was psychological. Faith in decisive naval air power faded, and with it, the hope of stopping the war at sea. For the United States, the battle confirmed something important. Control did not come from rushing forward, but from restraint. From knowing when not to chase. From valuing people as much as results. The decision to protect pilots, to trust radar, and to accept risk in order to save lives reflected a deeper understanding of long war. This difference shaped everything that followed. The legacy of the Philippine Sea is often misunderstood because it feels quiet. No cities changed hands that day. No surrender followed. But the balance of power shifted in a way that could not be reversed. After this battle, Japan could no longer fight the kind of naval air war it had once mastered. The future belonged to those who could replace losses, train deeply, and adapt quickly. The battle also reminds us that war is not decided in a single moment. It is decided across many small choices. A commander choosing defense over pursuit. A pilot turning back to save fuel. A fleet turning on lights at night to guide exhausted airmen home. These moments rarely appear in headlines, but they shape outcomes more than dramatic speeches ever could. At a human level, the battle leaves a deeper message. Those who fought were not symbols or statistics. They were people operating under pressure, fear, and exhaustion. Many never knew the full impact of their actions. Some did not live long enough to see how important this battle truly was. Yet their choices carried weight far beyond that single day. The Philippine Sea also teaches us about limits. Even powerful nations face boundaries. Japan reached the limit of what courage alone could achieve without resources and time. The United States learned that strength must be guided carefully, or it could still lead to loss. War punishes arrogance and rewards patience. Today this battle is remembered not for spectacle, but for consequence. It marked the end of one era of naval warfare and the beginning of another. It showed that the future of war would belong to those who could think in systems, protect experience, and learn faster than their enemy. The ocean where this battle was fought looks no different now. The sky is still wide. The water still reflects the clouds. But beneath that calm lies a story of decisions that reshaped history. The Battle of the Philippine Sea was not loud in memory, but it was decisive in meaning. It reminds us that wars often turn not on what is seen, but on what is understood too late.